Welcome to Encyclopedia Dramatica with Brian. This time we take a look at Christian. Christian, real name, Christine Weston Chandler, originally Christian Weston Chandler and Christopher Weston Chandler at his birth to age 11, but more popularly known as that fat, retarded, degenerate, transgender fuck, B. February 24, 1982, age 37, is a fat, stupid, perverted, supposedly Christian, severely autistic, basement-dwelling, liberal, tranny-loving, transgender, pedophile, self-proclaimed, ex-virgin with rage, degenerate man-child, and creator of his own skillfully written as well as skillfully drawn series of comics starring an illegal, Yank-made bootlegged version of the blue blur called Sonichu, his supremely retarded hybrid of Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog. This fat piece of shit is so full of himself he drew what only a literal 6-year-old would find as passable for a drawing. The most notable physical characteristic of Chris, beyond the obvious morbid corpulence, and his insane tranny operations that only succeeded in giving him a pair of pendulous French fries with soy sauce-induced man-boobs, is that he wears a medallion made out of Crayola fucking model magic and acrylic paint at all times in homage to his yellow Sonic recolor. In public. As if that weren't lame enough, Christian actually has a shitload of medallions, the Blaishu, and the Rosettu medallion, which he planned on giving to his sweetheart, suggesting that he has far too much free time on his hands. Which, of course, he does, because who the fuck would sit around on their fat ass all day coloring in comic book pages if they had anything better to do with their lives? Eventually, after years of trolling, Chris began asking for donations from people to continue his projects. The hapless retards of the net, idiotically thinking that sending Chris cash was milking the lolco, actually began complying with these requests and sending him upwards of $100 and calling it trolling. It seems that, in the end, Chris actually became the troll by milking countless dipshits out of their monies. This is why you shouldn't let your autistic children on the internet. Our journey begins in 2007 when Sonichu was first discovered on 4chan. Intrigued by what kind of feeble, autistic mind could create such a thing, the users tracked down Chris and all his associated online accounts. In response, Chris shrewdly decided to establish his lolco status right away by posting a rambling video containing a wide variety of content such as why smoking and drinking are bad, how girls should use Transformers action figures to seduce boys, and, in what would become extremely ironic years later, how heterosexuality and binary gender roles are an absolute must. The video also confirmed his delusional status as he described it as educational and hoped it would be played in at least 2 schools. Throughout the entire video, Chris proudly wears a Sonichu necklace, which would eventually become well known as the unofficial sign of autism of the internet. The most notable physical characteristic of Chris, beyond the obvious morbid corpulence, and his insane tranny operations that only succeeded in giving him a pair of pendulous French fries with soy sauce-induced man-boobs, is that he wears a medallion made out of Crayola fucking model magic and acrylic paint at all times in homage to his yellow Sonic recolor. In public. As if that weren't lame enough, Christian actually has a shitload of medallions, the Blaishu, and the Rosettu medallion, which he planned on giving to his sweetheart, suggesting that he has far too much free time on his hands. Which, of course, he does, because who the fuck would sit around on their fat ass all day coloring in comic book pages if they had anything better to do with their lives? Eventually, after years of trolling, Chris began asking for donations from people to continue his projects. The hapless retards of the net, idiotically thinking that sending Chris cash was milking the lolco, actually began complying with these requests and sending him upwards of $100 and calling it trolling. It seems that, in the end, Chris actually became the troll by milking countless dipshits out of their monies. This is why you shouldn't let your autistic children on the internet. Chris's newly created e-infamy, of course, drew the attention of Encyclopedia Dramatica and an article was promptly written about him. Chris discovered his article and decided to follow the same track he did with 4chan and confronting Ed rather than simply ignoring it. But first, Chris tried tampering with his article while logged in as realname, which is obviously Chandler, his last name, spelled backwards. Before erasing the entire article, Chris actually contributed by adding information that he hadn't submitted anywhere else. Most of his additions were chunks of text from uncited sources, which included how Megan shattered his heart, and printouts of the Sonichu News Dash, a shitty newsletter about his comic which he also distributed at PVCC that landed him in another apparent conflict with Mary Lee Walsh. To make matters worse, he also uploaded Rule 34 of his own characters. Later, when the context of the article finally dawned on Chris, he snapped. He created another account and tried blanking the page several times. CWC blames Encyclopedia Dramatica for breaking up the relationship between him and Megan despite the fact that she was never his girlfriend. Just another lying attempt to make Ed feel trolls' remorse. Chris then uploaded a video to YouTube in which he congratulated all of his non-existent Sonichu fans whom he mistakenly believed brought Ed down, and further urged them not to donate to Ed, while failing to realize that Ed's downtime was due to an issue related to the website as a whole, and not related to any drama around his article. Chris's plea for his fans to not donate to Ed flopped because the only people who pay any attention to Chris are precisely the ones who helped Ed reach its donation goal on August 14, 2008. Later, Chrissy would post yet another video to the tubes demanding that the page and discussion page be deleted, or else he wouldn't be making any more of his sweet comics for his 10 fans to enjoy. He then stated that much like the old adage, too many cooks spoil the broth, Ed had too many crooks. And that every single word on his Ed page was a crook. After standing in an anime pose with his fist in the air, Chris then hulked the fuck out and proceeded to beat the shit out of a Raggedy Ann doll with a picture of Clyde Cash taped to its face, and that more would follow if his Ed page wasn't taken down post haste. The beast can be unleashed here, or not. It has since been deleted. Even ulube.com doesn't want him on their site. So, before we go any further, you have to be wondering, who the fuck is this guy? Don't worry, you've come to the right place for answers. Chris was born Christopher Weston Chandler in Charlottesville, Virginia and raised in Ruckersville, Virginia. Diagnosed with the severe, devastating, highly contagious and once rare autism as a young child, this diagnosis would prove itself to be absolutely true when he had his first name legally changed to Christian by an animatronic bug-eyed bear in 1994 after hearing him a pedophile mispronounce it. An article in the local paper about the name change accurately described the then 11-year-old Chris's social development as being that of a 7 or 8-year-old. It would never change from that point. Chris did, however, manage to graduate from his final compulsory secular facility and even got an associate degree in computer-aided drafting and design from a local rundown community college. To this day he's never used that degree, as his crippling Asperger's would cause him severe confusion for rapidly changing tech, and if a CAD professor would criticize him for sloppy work, Chris would flip out. Given the quality of his later work, it appears that Virginia community colleges actually baffle science by being somehow shittier than people would already believe a Virginia community college to be. Aside from earning his useless associate's degree, he did also earn his first ban as he got expelled for posting creepy as fuck posters that advertised for cute single 18-21-year-old female companions with pictures of Sonichu on them, and displaying his homophobia by also telling men seeing the sign to mind their own business. On MySpace, yes, this story begins a long time ago. Chris posted his quest for a boyfriend-free girl and his stalking tendencies. Unfortunately for him, every woman on the planet appears to have a boyfriend. This has led to what Chris dubs noviophobia. In Chris's bastardized high school Spanish interpretation, he inserts novio, which essentially means boyfriend, before the Greek root phobia, committing a facepalm-worthy portmanteau that is almost nonsensical enough to make you forget that of all things in the world, Chris has a paralyzing fear of boyfriends. Chris claims to hate every male besides himself and his father, because they took all the pretty girls, leaving him with no one to choose from. To this day, Chris's hatred for males has only become bigger since he became a transgender degenerate wanker whose sickly conservative mother only condones and supports his extreme perversion. He employed his famous looking for a boyfriend free girl sign in two places, the Fashion Square Shopping Center and Piedmont, Virginia Community College. The dean, Mary Lee Walsh, reasonably assumed that Chris was publicly soliciting for sex, had the sign destroyed and banned him from the school for a year. Since then, he has become obsessed with her and depicts her within his comic as a bald witch with a Viking helmet, a pitchfork, a scepter to contain her evil anti-love powers, and occasionally a broomstick. We all know he fantasizes about having said broomstick in his ass, but that is another story. Chris has also shown his hatred towards Mary on several other occasions. He made a hilarious YouTube favicon.png video asking for fictional character Harvey Birdman's, not Birdman, assistance to fight that evil bitch Mary Lee Walsh forever. Won in a contest for Adult Swim. He also made a video of him fighting Mary Lee Walsh as a custom character in Soul Calibur 3. Despite his hate for Walsh, he still took the time with his magic markers to make hideous porn of her, due to the fact that he secretly wants to diddle her poo hole. You know you want to see it. Chris's love quest was also foiled by security guards of Fashion Square Shopping Center. He was handcuffed and kicked out by jerk-ops, half-jerk, half-cops, for trying to attract a boyfriend-free girl. Christian claims to have started his ill-begotten love quest because he wants a daughter whom he will doubly call Crystal Weston Chandler, apparently after the illustrious metal. He made her in the form of one of his My Little Pony figures, from his own pubic hair, mind you, and made a separate file in the game Animal Crossing, and played as her. The person we know the most about is Megan Schroeder, who had a huge influence on the comic and Chris himself. She remarked that the antagonist of one of the Sailor Moon movies came off as kind of queer, possibly influencing Chris's homophobia. One example of the Chris-induced drama is the blog entry where a girl describes her encounter with Chris as he was wandering stores in search of his true love in late 2004, which can be viewed here. Chris changes love interests far more frequently than he changes his underwear. It is speculated that he has fallen in true love around 50 times. Trolling of Chris Chan has crossed the old border into IRL. Whether internet vigilantes are trying to expose him for the psycho stalker he really is, or if they fap to picking on retards, it's uncertain. The Game Place, a store where he volunteered, was soon subject to his antics when Anon took several photos of him. See here for Chris King. An old classmate of Chris, Joshua Martinez, did some trolling. Chris knew him from his old school. Joshua and Chris both had special ed together, recently met up with him again and was getting along fine. Apparently, Joshua was very popular with women and had met some famous celebrities. For some reason, Chris became extremely jealous and even tried to get Ed to go after him. Note that Chris only values Joshua's friendship because he's popular with women, and that by being friends with him he might end up getting laid. Unfortunately for Chris, even other special education kids will fuck with him. The chick that Joshua was supposed to hook him up with was just Joshua trolling him with a picture of Vanessa Hudgens. Click here for Chris Chan unwittingly fapping to Joshua. A girl IRL pranked Chris on a fake date. Click here to see Chris Chan get taken down to 15%. Though trolling in this next case started online, it quickly moved into IRL. Chris had started a relationship with an e-girlfriend called Blanca. On September 11, 2008, another troll going by the same name was really Amy.Give black man in a pickle costume and managed to score horrific nudes. Warning, don't look at IT. On October 7, 2008, Blanca managed to get the medallions and YouTube favicon.png destroy them. Chris the Jailbird. The Game Place, later known as Kval's Hobbies, Games, and Toys and Defunctors of June 2014, was a comic, gaming, and hobby store located in Charlottesville, Virginia, where Chris played Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and other games that the DSM-5 officially lists as autism spectrum disorder symptoms. Chris was a regular for many years, unfailing showing up wearing his Sonju medallion, where he became well known for scaring little kids, throwing bitch fits when he lost, which other regulars say was often, and threatening to fight other patrons, who apparently did not simply beat his ass down because they found him too pathetic. It was also here that Chris was to meet the ill-fated Megan Schroeder. Although he had received a temporary ban before, Chris eventually found himself Burma banned in 2008 after getting into a racist screaming match with a black patron. Despite intervention from his long-suffering mother, neither of them were able to convince manager Michael Snyder to allow him back into the store. As it had worked so well in the past, Chris took to YouTube in 2009 to make a half-assed apology and begging to be let back into the store. Not surprisingly, the video failed to change any hearts or minds, not that its intended audience probably saw it anyway. After years of relative quiet, Chris and his mother, Barbara, aka Snorlax, were arrested on the 28th of October 2011. Chris was charged with assault and trespassing at the game place, while Barbara, on top of that, was charged with hit and run after she attempted to run Michael Snyder over in the parking lot, the second time this has happened, before driving off. When Ma Barker and her thug life son were soon pulled over not far from the store, Barbara attempted to defend her precious child and was subsequently charged with assaulting an officer. Chris attempted to have charges dropped in court on the 7th of November. Although he apparently kept his mouth shut and didn't spurg out, he still received no mercy from the district attorney and not a single charge was dropped. We have no idea if he plead nolo contendere, guilty, not guilty by reason of insanity or shut up, judge. It would turn out our hero, Michael Snyder, called for a civil trial against both Chris and Snorlax. Chris returned to court on the 15th of December but fuck all happened. Apparently, he whined to the judge that he'd only just gotten a lawyer and needed more time to prepare, and got a delay until 5th January. He brought his 3Ds with him and Anons from /CWC/ attending the hearing were able to obtain his street pass me. Even that's a fucking tomgirl. On January 5th, he got yet another postponement, so he could finish leveling up some Pokemons in his game instead of going directly to jail. The court set a subsequent hearing date for the 5th of April 2012, with each of them facing a potential minimum sentence of 1 year and a maximum sentence of 10 years. The only way his get out of jail for free card could work to somewhat to his advantage would be due to this incident reeking of autistic fuck-up, and the court would find him incapable of functioning as a normal adult and therefore not responsible for his actions, and would then commit him to a mental health facility, likely for most of his remaining adult life. As for Barbara, if the court found her guilty, it is likely the 70-year-old wouldn't survive her prison sentence. The verdict. Chris's pastoral counselor Rocky Bullwinkle Shoemaker revealed details of the Chandlers' living conditions to a suave, British troll named Dr. Perrin, who turns out to be notorious Fundy-created troll Chris the Hacker. Apparently, not only is the Chandler residence a rubbish heap of hoarded junk, it is also suffering an undefined infestation problem, and that bug bites are part of the reason the great lumberjack went off to that sawmill in the sky. He was even under quarantine immediately before his death. Click here for audio of the phone call. The charges for the trespassing and assault were eventually dropped. Michael, being extraordinarily magnanimous under the circumstances, managed to get the court to accept a plea bargain because he didn't want Chris or his mother to have felony charges on their record. Both the Chandlers plead guilty, while still endorsing their version of events as the factual one, to a reduced set of charges on the condition that they pay Michael's medical bills. Chris, gracious as ever, responded to the judge's question of whether or not he understood the terms and conditions of the plea bargain with. Barbara and Chris were both sentenced to 1 year community service, with Barb also getting 2 years probation and Chris getting 1, along with required mental health treatment, with jail sentences being suspended as long as the terms of the plea deal were followed. Snyder was also awarded a permanent, i.e. 2-year, restraining order against Chris, and also dropped his civil suit against the Chandlers since the payment of his medical bills was already stipulated by the court as a requirement of the plea bargain. Chris, of course, responded to Snyder's generosity by posting reviews of gameplays on Google under 1 million different sock puppets, in which he called Snyder a registered sex offender and complained that he discriminated against autistic people, as well as creating flyers stating that gameplays was where cyberbullies hang out and encouraging people to stay away. Keep it classy, Chris. Remember, Christed. Keep your fat ass to the wall and bend with the knees. But we all know he's going to drop the soap on purpose. Blue arms. Chris Tran drops the soap. Throughout late fall and winter of 2014, Chris Tran, now newly rechristened as Christine, had been ranting incessantly about Sonic Boom being the worst thing to happen to the world since Michael Jackson became white. While Boom and all other things Sonic in the past 20 years do suck like a donkey taint rim job, he or she's not mad at the game for any technical, gameplay, or artistic issues. The non-binary Lolco Wonder is mad because Sonic's arms were changed from peach-colored to blue, an aesthetic change so minor it wouldn't warrant a trope as Tails discussion. By all rights, this shouldn't have even warranted a bit in this article, but our autistic hero went full Islamic State with the blue arms thing. He issued repeated calls for boycotts, violence, and terrorism on his Facebook page, going on and on about sensory overload as if he even knows what those words mean individually. Things finally boiled over sometime around Christmas 2014 when he vandalized a local Sonic Boom display, harassing GameStop employees, and landing the faggiest pepper spray attack in the history of American criminal law on a random guy while leaving the store. All of this was caught on video. Chris was picked up by police a short time later, sat in jail until his court date, which was the 29th of December 2014, and charged with a 6th-degree felony. His mom bailed him out. Chris returned to court on February 5th, his case was delayed until April 2nd, then again until May 7th, and then again until June 11th, then again until July 23rd, and then once more until October 15th. While we all wished that the courts would just find him guilty and imprison the fucker already, after 7 friggin' hearings, Chris was eventually let off with just a few $100s in fines and another suspended sentence on the stipulation that he won't violate his probation again. Chris gets permabanned from GameStop. Since the macing incident, Chris has been bowing to the corporate office hoping to overturn his ban at the one store, claiming at one point that it was transphobia. In an act of pure lulz irony, GameStop told Chris that not only is he banned from that one store but statewide. Chris isn't even good enough for Walmart. Chris, not smart enough to keep his ass out of public while waiting for his day in court for the previous incident, decided that 2 retailers wasn't enough and decided to add America's largest retailer, Walmart, to resume a la ban just 1 week after the GameStop incident. Chris would later brag about this in an online conversation in which he called himself a badass, yet clutched his tranny pearls when the manager asked him to leave. Once again he threatened the staff with pepper spray. When asked why he carries it, he claimed that he's constantly harassed by trolls, bullies, etc. Once again, it's everyone's fault except Chris. And it's highly doubtful that trolls are able to pepper spray anyone across the internet. Though if someone does figure out how to do that, please leave detailed instructions on the TJC. Fragile feminine soul Christine Chandler discussed the Walmart banishment in January 2015 during his annual State of the Christian Union address, in which he also revealed that he may possibly be also unwelcome at his local Target, thus thankfully removing him from the only 2 locations autists find potential mates, aside from Comic-Con. He feels only 2 offenses should result in automatic banishment. Threatening to mace employees should be forgivable if you're having a bad day, along with other things people typically do while having a bad day, such as perhaps urinating on the cantaloupes or attempting sexual acts with underage betta fish. As far as we are aware, Chris's sage opinions on the topic of banishment have yet to persuade these 2 multi-billion-dollar corporations. Chris Chan's virginity, lost? On April 12, 2012, the PVCC troll group posted a flurry of screenshots. They were of a redacted Facebook posting supposedly from the Christad boasting of him sticking his bent duck into some poontang, which has already been proven physically impossible unless the hooker was a ham beast, and then giving a gift basket to the prostitute. Of note is that Mr. Chandler has committed another crime, since the solicitation of prostitution is illegal in Virginia. Call up the Chandler house today, and tell him porking a blow-up doll doesn't count. Yes, folks, that's what Chris has been reduced to. You'd think that if he knew he was about to go to jail, he'd nut up and do something interesting, but no, Chris will go out with a whimper, without even getting to bank. Smug Gaspard is smug. Mwahahahahaha. Coming out of the closet. Just a tub of whale shit with perpetually flaccid penis and a severe mud butt, and there you go. One of God's unique and beautiful creatures evolving. On August 16, 2014, Chris comes out as a lesbian-identified male, making him one of countless sufferers of trolling-induced transsexuality syndrome. This means he thinks he was meant to be born in a woman's body, rather than the fat autistic man-child body he currently inhabits. He goes on to say he hates all penises, including his own. Time will only tell if Chris will save up his tugboat and get the surgeries needed to become a woman. He also states that Snorlax is not supportive of his decision to come out as gay, but he doesn't care. What a badass, for a 32-year-old to disagree with his mother. He's likely still spooning with her every night, though. #SureSweetCharlie. #SureSweetCharlie or #I am Charlie, for those who don't speak frog, is a short-lived fad, obviously started by some soap dodger that watched Kirk Douglas in Spartacus too many times, that Chris got involved in to impress his artiste friends on Twitter and Facebook, even going so far as putting a French flag mask over his picture after the 7 January 2015 killing of 12 people at the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo by a pist of Muslim. Who'd have thought? The irony of Chris's involvement is that he didn't understand it was one defending the inalienable right of free speech when he has demanded the takedown of the satirical website Encyclopedia Dramatica, blocked so many people on his accounts for saying things he doesn't like, and especially when he has announced that he wants to silence people like gay males because he opposes their life choices. Despite being autistic, he is okay with lesbianism, so there is some hope for him. I will admit that Chris may have learned his lesson about free speech, because on July of 2017 he made a donation to the legal fund for Encyclopedia Dramatica. #IStandWithDuppy. Chris came out of another closet when he stood in solidarity with his man crush, Thai lady / boy doopy do over by openly declaring his love of animated child porn when he climbed on board the hashtag wagon to make doopy feel better because he was playing the drama queen and whining all over the internet that he was depressed and might become an hero because people were calling him a pedophile and a sick fuck for doing drawings of kids having sex with adults. Like all the other retards that signed up for this idiot fest that can only be described as a monkey trying to fuck a football or Chris Chan making sweet love to his PS3, Chris and everyone else were too fucking lazy and do a simple Google search to see that it is in fact illegal, choosing to believe in much the same way that has defined Chris's past, that the law is their toy and bends to their whims of what they think should be right or wrong in the current circumstance. The vagina. It has been reported that at some point in 2015, Chris Tyne got a piercing in the area between his asshole and nutsack, which is possibly the most unholy, godforsaken demon-infested strip of matter aside from hell itself. According to Chris's internet research, lesbians engage in a practice known as scissoring where they rub their clitorises together, and being a male-identified lesbian, Chris wanted the piercing so he could use it with a future lesbian lover. As usual, Chris paid no care to his personal hygiene, which resulted in the pierced area getting infected. A friend, possibly a troll, suggested he remove the piercing and let it heal, and the sore supposedly evolved into a flesh hole which in Chris Chan's warped mind resembles a vagina. Chris is under the impression that the hole is a result of white noise videos on YouTube, which Chris listens to since he believes it can aid in his transformation into a true and honest woman. When trolls told Chris to seek medical attention, he lied about already having visited a doctor for his new vagina, with Chris claiming that the doctors told him that his vagina is good and beautiful. In truth, this is a combination of circumstances which may ultimately kill Chris. In the event that the puss pocket, which is likely embedded deep within, Chris has stated that he has been wearing maxi pads in order to contain the bleeding. His cursed hole tunnels deep enough into his taint to reach his digestive system. He will suffer a septic shock, which is shit being released directly into the bloodstream. If Chris suffers a septic shock, he will likely die. January 10, 2014, house fire. In the early days of 2014, 14 Branchland Court was burned down by a fire sparked by plugging a coffee brewer into a bathroom outlet at 3 a.m. and leaving it unattended, heating the hoard to its flash point. The entire property, along with all of Chris's earthly possessions, were destroyed. It begs the question why Chris was brewing coffee at 3 in the morning, although likely reasons would be due to his biological clock, or that Chris is obviously trying to commit fraud and sue the coffee maker Keurig, or perhaps that Chris likes a nice warm cup of hot Java after taking a shit in the middle of the night. One firefighter was seriously injured, probably because Chris kept going back inside to find his Sonyu medallion. You'd think that this could have been a sign to Chris from his sugar daddy Jesus, to turn his fucking life around and start making good changes, but no, our stripe-clad ladies man kept on destroying his life over and over. This fat piece of shit never learns. He never fucking will. This is the ultimate downfall of Chris Chan, is his refusal to fucking know when to change. Back to the present. Today, Christine Enifer wanders around Virginia, buying things with the money people send him, because that's trolling him, somehow, while complete losers snap pictures of him like they're paparazzi snapping pictures of Caitlyn Jenner fucking Taylor Swift. Still existing, somehow, is the Chris Chan wiki, which obsessively, i.e. pathetically, follows every detail of Chris and his mother as if they're still, or, more accurately, wherever, worth more than a single wiki page. They also ask for donations in order to keep the stalking possible. The sad end to all of this turns out not to actually be Chris, but rather anyone who would spend money to keep watching him or his mother's fucking credit rating. In the end, he became the troll. CWC vs. The Donald. On November 10, 2016, Chris, who only supported Hillary Clinton because she was a woman, has threatened to assassinate President-elect Trump and VP-elect Mike Pence on Twitter. He was threatening to kill them on social media before he pussied out and deleted the original tweet, only to post 2 more threats aimed at both the president and the vice president. Chris has also made many YouTube videos talking about Trump and denouncing his presidency. E-begging. On Chris's new YouTube account Kvil Guardian, Chris has begun to e-beg. Most of these videos include Chris talking about how the mortgage company is biting our butts again. Chris also has a Patreon account where he usually racks up a total of $537 a month. Chris being Chris, he and his mother began to accumulate quite a bit of debt and the e-begging became archived today ico.png more and more desperate, with the corpse-like Barb even appearing in some of the begging videos. In April 2017, after unsuccessfully trying to sell stamp albums and getting frustrated, Chris archived today ico.png listed his Sonic totem on eBay and it was bought for $1,500. Almost immediately, Chris spent $400 on a 14-karat gold necklace, to replace one his mother had archived today ico.png pawned, and the rest went to Skylanders shirts and to pay off a few bills. In typical Chris fashion, he had spent all of the money without shipping the item and the buyer had disputed the charge on PayPal, putting Chris's account in the negative and Chris then begged for more money so he could ship it. Chris did finally send out the totem and the buyer surfaced on 4chan/v/ and provided photos of his $1,500 papier-mâché horror, reporting that Chris had mailed it in 2 boxes scotch-taped together with trash used as packing material. Inspired by the sale of the totem, weeks later Chris dug through 20+ stamp garbage bags of clothing that had been festering since the 2014 house fire and managed to archive today ico.png find his classic shirt so he could attempt to sell it. Chris archived today ico.png listed the shirt on eBay with a $12,000 starting bid and a buyout price of $20,000. A portion of the winning bid was said to be going towards restoration of the shirt and putting it in a frame, archived today ico.png after he got the money from the sale. Chris wore the classic shirt and his medallion in a follow-up video about the sale, seen below. Becoming a literal whore. Chris Chan's plan to support the troops on the 11th of September. Most efficient way to troll Chris. Since our little Untermensch ignores reality and all his failings and actually believes that he is the Übermensch that the Nazis Nietzsche prophesied, the easiest way to troll him is to tell him that whatever he is doing sucks, he will never be any good at it and that you saw a Jew do it a lot better than him. In other words, tell him the truth. Like a vampire being exposed to the sun, basement-dwelling, autistic, fucktards react the same when exposed to the truth, but instead of being reduced to ash, they're turned into a blubbering pile of failure that will whine how everyone hates them because they were born different. Chris Chan has superpowers. Recently, everyone's favorite virgin with rage from Virginia has become convinced that his autism comes with superpowers and has made posts on Twitter suggesting that he was endowed with a level of hearing that our simple mortal minds and weak, fragile human bodies could never come to understand. Chris has made the claim that his senses are so acute, or at least his hearing, that he can hear a whispered conversation being held across a room in a noisy environment. For him, an unimpressive ability that can be replicated with a directional microphone is something to brag about. Some people think that this is the beginning of his break from reality and that he will be claiming more powers that belong to Superman until he climbs to the top of a 30-story building and tries to fly. Considering how fragile Chris's psyche is, this is just another attempt by him to convince himself that he is somehow special or better than everyone because he has a special skill that no one else has. The post is probably meant more for him as it is published in some form of semi-permanent media to convince him that it is true rather than for the people who follow him. June 23, 2018, the ban from Too Many Games. While at the Too Many Games convention at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center, our fellow man-child of Badoda Chris-chan, thinking she is some sort of goddess, decided to touch people inappropriately. She even kissed Shane, also known as 464, without his consent. Yeah. That actually happened. And when she was kicked out, she made a whole scene about it. 10+ years of getting banned from dozens of local stores and getting rejected by women for his creepy behavior has taught him fuck all. Attention! The subject of this article is a lol cow, and is currently ripe for milking. You can help by trolling the shit out of them whenever you see them, then laughing at their lulz-inducing theatrics.